calling the meeting to order. And as we can see, we have before us our first hour of witnesses, and that is Bell Canada. And Bell Canada, you have 4 presenters. You have 10 minutes to present, and so you can decide amongst yourselves who's going to do it, but I will give you a 2-minute notice when you have 2 minutes left. Now, following that, we have a question and answer session, and you will be therefore up for about 50 minutes, so 10 minutes presentation and 40 minutes questions and answers between everyone else. So perhaps we can begin, and who will begin? Who will speak for you? Ms. Freeman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of Parliament. My name is Wendy Freeman, and I am the President of CTV News. With me today are my colleagues, Richard Gray, Vice President and General Manager, Radio and TV, Ottawa and Pembroke, and National Head, CTV2 News, Kevin Goldstein, Vice President, Regulatory Affairs for Content Distribution, and Pierre Rodrigue, Vice President, Industry Relations. Every day, CTV News plays an important role in ensuring that Canadians are informed about local and regional issues on both our television and digital platforms. We are Canada's largest private television operator, with 31 local stations, some of which had been in operation for over 50 years. We are present in markets of all sizes, including 12 markets where we are the only local television news voice. Markets such as Dawson Creek and Terrace, British Columbia, Prince Albert and Yorkton, Saskatchewan, London and Kitchener, Ontario, and Sydney, Nova Scotia. Ratings tell us that the news these stations provide is of critical importance to Canadians. When a local news event breaks, we are there with boots on the ground in each of our markets to give viewers immediate information on what's happening. For example, a boil water advisory in a community, or a safe place to go in times of a natural disaster, such as a Calgary flood. These are but 2 examples of many. As such, the long-term viability of these stations across CTV and our competitors is vital to our communities and our country. Unfortunately, our success in connecting and reflecting local communities does not necessarily translate into financial viability. Last broadcast year, all but 5 of our television stations lost money. The previous year, 20 of our stations lost money. The trend is not in our favor. And it's not just our stations. Local stations across the country are buckling under extreme financial pressure. Despite these challenges, and this is a very important point that I would like to make, given the topics that this committee is studying, we are very proud that there has been no erosion in the amount of local news hours that each one of our stations provides to their respective communities. We are extremely proud of the role we play in providing local news in communities across the country. In fact, for many years, we have provided more local programming than the regulated minima in many of the markets we serve. For example, in Saskatoon, where we are only required by regulation to provide 7 hours per week, we in fact air 32. In Winnipeg, we do 31.5. In Atlantic Canada, we air 18.5. And our local reporters and anchors, such as Sarah Plowman, a reporter in Winnipeg, and Tara Nelson, our anchor in Calgary, are an integral part of their communities. But the amount of local news that we currently provide is not sustainable going forward. There is really no debate that local television is in a permanent structural decline. In fact, since 2011, advertising revenue generated by private conventional TV broadcasting stations has decreased by $325 million, and 91 million of Bell Media stations alone. Without a doubt, delivering local news is a costly undertaking. Changes are needed, and that is why at the CRTC's recent hearing on local and community television, we made a proposal to reallocate existing money in the system and create a fund that provides an incentive to invest in local news. A previous but now defunct fund, the LPIF, was a lifeline for local TV stations, allowing many of them to keep their doors open. Kevin?
Local television remains the most effective way to reach a mass audience. It's where Canadians turn first for information about what is going on in their community. And it is the place viewers expect to find the biggest shows, whether it's popular dramas, tentpole events, or programs of national interest. Local television is a megaphone for the discoverability of Canadian content on digital platforms. In that role, local television supports and promotes the digital ecosystem, which is why it is vitally important that it remains a viable platform. But we must also be mindful of the business reality of local TV. With declining advertising dollars and no access to other sources of revenue, the business model for local TV is not sustainable. Local over-the-air television is the only form of regulated television that does not have any form of subscription revenue. As an advertising-only service, local television is simply no longer sustainable in its current form. Some have argued that the growth of online news platforms is part of the solution. That is true. But the cost involved to gather and produce high-quality news remains the same regardless of the platform on which it is made available. Despite this, we still need to invest in these platforms because it's what our viewers want, and local television news gathering provides the backbone for us to do so. However, the financial picture for local television has the potential to get worse in the near future. First, in order to coordinate our spectrum policies with those of our neighbors south of the border, the government is repurposing the 600 MHz spectrum band on which over-the-air television stations operate. While we are supportive of this initiative in general, it will cost Bell Media tens of millions of dollars, if not more. This after spending roughly $30 million 5 years ago for the digital conversion. Second, the decision by the CRTC to remove the ability to request simultaneous substitution during the Super Bowl will result in a multi-million-dollar loss of advertising revenue for CTV. Even this large amount pales in comparison to the broader impact on the Canadian economy, including the impact on local advertisers who will lose an important vehicle to promote their products and services. But the impact is not just economic. Canadian consumers will be exposed to U.S. pharmaceutical drug advertisements that do not meet Health Canada standards, as well as to advertisements for financial services that may be contrary to Canada's public policy objectives. Canadian tourism will lose the opportunity to promote our country to Canadians, and will lose the ability to promote Canadian programs, something we have done with great success to date. None of this is in anyone's interest. Pierre?
Le présent comité a également reçu le mandat d'examiner.
The committee has also been given the mandate to look at the unintended consequences of media concentration. Media concentration is not at the root of the problems facing local television. Far from being the problem, scale has allowed larger broadcasters to support their local television stations. Just think of the 12 communities we noted earlier, where Bell operates as the only local TV station. Without the scale and efficiencies that come from being part of a large operation, these stations would not survive. Overall, we believe that media concentration has been a positive thing for Canada. Yet, while consolidation and scale have helped us to some extent, as well as Corus, Rogers, and Quebecor, we are no less immune to the structural decline in the over-the-air television sector than other licensees. As we pointed out earlier, only 5 of our stations were profitable last year, even though CTV remains the most watched local television group. We noted with interest the comment made by one of your earlier witnesses that advertising-dependent media is in big trouble. We couldn't agree more.
In light of our comments, we make the following recommendations for this committee's consideration. First, as we propose in our submission to the CRTC, there must be a redirection of existing funds in the system to specifically support local news. Second, given that local television does not receive a subscriber fee like specialty services do, some of the anticipated $5 billion in revenue from the 600 MHz auction should be used to cover at least the costs of relocating transmitters. And finally, the wide-ranging impact of the CRTC's decision on the Super Bowl must be reviewed. In closing, local television, and specifically local news, remain important priorities for the Canadian broadcasting system, for Canadians, and for Bell. We look forward to this committee's report as to how the situation faced by local stations can be improved. Thank you for the opportunity to share our views. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I want to congratulate you on being 2 minutes short of your 10. Very efficient. We will now begin our questions with a question from Mr. Vandal of the Liberals for 7 minutes. Now, I just wanted to warn that the 7, before we time him, the 7 minutes includes the questions and answers. So if everyone can be as concise as you can, we can really get some good questions and answers in. Thank you. Mr. Vandal.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Merci beaucoup pour votre présentation.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Saint-Boniface-Saint-Vital, which is in the city of Winnipeg, Manitoba, and our city, our province are abuzz today with the news yesterday that Bell recently purchased MTS. So I'd like to ask you some questions about that purchase. We know that MTS currently has 2,700 jobs in Manitoba, And we understand that Winnipeg will become Bell Canada's Western headquarters, and I think that's positive. However, a third of MTS stores in Manitoba will be sold to TELUS, I understand. And can you give me and this committee, or at least this side of the committee, some comfort, some measure of comfort that there will not be massive layoffs as a result of this acquisition?
I'll try to answer the question, just because it's a bit outside the scope of kind of the area that we operate in on the media side. I think, though, the MTS transaction is obviously a very important transaction to Bell. It's important in terms of our overall broadband strategy, and we think it's an important and a good transaction for the people of Manitoba and for the Manitoba economy. I can't speak specifically to what the plans are relating to jobs. I think we were very committed to that, and we are sensitive to the overall issue you raised. But it's somewhat, I think, beyond, I guess, the area that this group focuses in.
So you don't have any information on that?
I no specific information, no.
You can't tell me if there's going to be a net job gain, net job loss, or?
I can't speak to anything other than what was publicly said yesterday.
Is there anyone else on your side that can provide some sort of response? Okay.
Provide a response? No, thank you.
Manitoba currently has wireless rates that are 30 to 40% lower than those provinces where there is less competition. This is clearly, in my mind, an acquisition that's going to result in reduced competition in Manitoba. So can Bell foresee, given that our rates are better than the majority of Canadians, do you foresee any increase in rates on the horizon with this acquisition, or?
Again, we're from the media perspective, it's hard for me to comment on that. The only thing I will say in terms of what was discussed yesterday, both publicly and in internal calls we had on it. Sometimes, right now the situation from a wireless perspective in Manitoba is, you have two fairly large players in terms of Rogers and MTS, who have essentially most of the share in the market, and two relatively smaller players in terms of TELUS and Bell. I think, in theory, the concept of having four players and more competition may lead to lower rates, but I think you could also say the same thing in terms of having competition between three relatively sized players will also lead to potentially better service for the community.
Okay. Another question. I understand with this acquisition, Bell have committed to investing $1 billion to expand broadband wireless in rural and urban areas across Manitoba. Now, do you foresee this helping bring broadband to areas that do not currently have the service, or improve overall connectivity speeds for Manitobans?
I think it's going to improve overall connectivity speeds for Manitobans. I'm not sure as to the specifics as to the rollout plan. I'm sorry.
Okay. So you have nobody on your side has any specifics on this acquisition? You haven't given me a lot here, and that surprises me, frankly.
I'm sorry. We're here to focus on the specific issues of local news and media concentration, and that's
exactly media concentration, which is the theme of this public hearing, and yet you come to the table one day after rolling out a $4 billion acquisition with no information. I have to say that surprises and disappoints me.
Well, I'm sorry for that. The only thing I would say on that is that the transaction in question is largely a telecom transaction and not one overly focused on the media space. Other than the small level of BDU subscribers. Obviously, the broadband acquisition side of it is very important and helps in terms of the broader rollout of the digital infrastructure and advancing of the digital economy, and that obviously touches on the media space. But it's not a media kind of concentration or transaction issue.
Okay, well that's a longer discussion. Manitoba Telecom Service has been very supportive of Aboriginal production in Manitoba. I know Telecom have been very supportive of APTN, which is based in Winnipeg, one of the world's only national Indigenous broadcasters. Can you tell me if Bell intends to offer any special benefit for Aboriginal producers in Winnipeg or special benefit to the network, Aboriginal People's TV Network?
We currently provide APTN all our video. We have a transaction where we provide them everything. So a lot of the videos you see on their newscast and on APTN, we give them. And we've been doing that for many years, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you. Just in closing, I see my time's almost up. I'm very disappointed, Madam Speaker, that one day after publicly rolling out a $4 billion acquisition in Manitoba, there's senior executives of Bell come to this table with no information. Winnipeggers and Manitobans are concerned about the repercussions of this. I'm not predisposed to say this is going to be negative, but however, I would expect some answers when they come before a standing committee.
Thank you very much. I agree with you. I think that one of the issues that we're looking at here is not simply local news, it is also about the effects of media consolidation, and this was a question on media consolidation. So I'm hoping that other members would get an answer to that question if they bring it up. Thank you very much, Mr. Vandal. We go to Mr. Maguire for the Conservatives.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation this morning, and I think one of your comments there is that this is about media. It's not about, I mean, you're not delivering the TV side of things at the present time other than what you already do in Manitoba, and thank you for that. But I guess I just wanted to know more specifically about some of your lunch and supper time newscasts, that sort of thing. Are they continuing to lose listeners and viewers as far as what's happening across the country as well? I know you've indicated that advertising-dependent areas are having trouble and struggling, but are your local lunch and supper time news broadcasts losing that audience as well?
Well, the interesting thing is that our ratings continue to remain high. It's the advertising revenue that we're losing. But most of our local newscasts are still doing quite well. Mm-hmm. So it's really the revenue that's going down. There are still lots of eyeballs on the show.
Yes, and you've indicated that you've got 5 that are still being profitable. The rest are not. Can you just give us some examples of what makes them profitable and those kinds of affiliates?
Well, and Richard may help me out on this, but they were mostly in the larger markets, Toronto, Ottawa, those markets that are still doing quite well. But again, what's happening is that advertisers are now moving over to digital. So we're trading in big advertising dollars for digital dimes. So a lot of they're moving their money over to digital. So we're getting dollars. You're getting dimes now instead of dollars, even though we still have a lot of eyeballs on all our shows.
And to provide you a little bit more depth with respect to your question about profitability of our stations, Ms. Freeman is entirely correct. It is all in larger markets. And it happens in larger markets because we're able to achieve greater economies of scale. So our television station in Toronto, for example, is supported by a number of our other operations. Our television station here in Ottawa is supported to some extent by our local radio operations. In Vancouver, we cohabitate radio and television together, so there's a blended management team. As a result of all of those actions, we're able to, avoid the problem in larger markets that we've seen hit smaller markets, but I don't think that is something that's going to be sustainable in the long term.
Thanks. A lot of younger people today are telling me that they're cutting their cords on cable, and I'm just wondering, you've got these markets that are innovations. I'm wondering if there's any innovation or modifications that you're making in some areas in the local news programming to attempt to keep. You're indicating the ratings are up, but profits are down, but also just to continue to stay with the rating side of it. And have they Is there any way of, or what have they done to adapt in the new media environment?
We have adapted, and we continue to adapt. We have digital-first cultures in all our newsrooms now. The problem is, though, we have to be everything for everyone. We have to be on every device, and I always give the example of my family. So we have to be on Snapchat and YouTube for my 17-year-old daughter who watches news. We have to be on Facebook for my 20-year-old son. We have to be on a laptop for my husband. And then we still have to be at 6 o'clock for my 70-year-old parents. So we have to be everywhere, on every device, everything possible. And we have a digital-first mentality now in all newsrooms because the fact is mobile is key and digital is key moving forward. So we use also the behemoths like Facebook and YouTube and Google to also try and get as much eyeballs as we can on our digital sites, on our mobile devices, so that we can bring the most eyeballs to our sites as possible. But again, what's happening is we're trading dollars for dimes.
I think to talk about the adaptation process, probably the biggest change that has occurred is the manner by which our staff in our newsrooms function. It used to be that a reporter working in a newsroom would work on one story all day long, and they would file that story for 6 o'clock, and their day would effectively be over. But as Ms. Freeman explained, we have adopted a digital-first approach, and what that entails, what that involves is that reporter who used to work and file one story during the course of the day is filing multiple stories across the entirety of their 8-hour shift. They are keeping viewers, listeners, folks who are tuning into our digital sites up to date on nuances, on developments in that particular story. Effectively, their job has turned into one that is very much like working for a 24-hour news operation instead of for a local television station.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You've indicated that some of this, I just wanted you to speak about the specifics of the CRT regulations. You mentioned the Super Bowl and the simultaneous substitution there, but is there other regulations that inhibit your ability to enhance or distribute local news as well that could be changed?
I think the main one is kind of the structural setup of over-the-air television, such that it being an advertising-only medium. The other types of services that the CRTC licenses, whether it be a specialty service or a pay channel, have access to a subscription revenue stream, including our own CTV News channel or CP24, which is our local specialty service in Toronto. And that completely changes the business reality for producing news when you have the ability to draw from two different revenue streams. So I think that's a structural issue. We've advocated in the past moving away from an over-the-air model to a local specialty model, such that you could shore up the finances of this medium but continue to provide the same programming depth. That hasn't been accepted, but that's I think the most important one I would point to.
Then I assume as a last question, if I could, you mentioned that, but also then it must impact your business when the government subsidizes CBC by $100 million to add that back, into their coffers. Do you feel that this situation will impact your ratings in private sector, and how do you compete with that? And are there other, I guess, just ways that you can impact and encourage the private sector to promote more local news content as well?
You have less than a minute, Mr. Goldstein.
I think that we'll have to see in terms of the CBC and the investment how those dollars are used in terms of whether or not they'll impact or not. I think CBC is an important cultural institution, but for us, yeah, it is a challenge where essentially you could argue that CBC gets two revenue streams as well. They have access to advertising and they also get a government subsidy, whereas our stations just have, again, the one revenue stream. There have been funds in the past, whether it was the LPIF or something else, that helped support local news for private television stations as well. And I think, as we indicated in our opening statement, I think that's something we think is important, to look at going forward.
Thank you very much. And now I go to Mr. Natal for the NDP.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Merci tout le monde d'être là.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all of the witnesses for being here. All four of you are here, and I think that that represents how important you understand the importance of appearing here. Now, we're in a period where the system is facing a lot of challenges. A lot of people blame you. You're one of the big players in the industry, and you are often blamed for some of the challenges in the industry. I think it's appropriate that a company like yours make money. You have stakeholders who are happy to get their dividends, and that's perfectly reasonable. But I think that we all need to consider the health of this system. You made some points in your presentation that indicate that even for you, things are becoming difficult. At the end of your presentation, you said that you welcomed the testimony of someone who said that there were significant advertising losses for traditional media, that this was something that you would notice too. So I want to know, would you agree that the system is based on the fact that public broadcasting is managed by a government agency, and that all of that is also based on advertising, which allows people to offer better content at a lower cost? And in this system, the CRTC can make a decision to broadcast the Super Bowl with American advertising. Now, I think everyone here cares about the health of the system. We want everyone to make money. The actors, the journalists, the broadcasters, the distributors, everyone. Everyone needs to make a living and also represent the best interests of the country. But how can we explain that the president of the CRTC has made this decision? And I want to know, for you, if we look at this decision, where's the public interest in that decision?
C'est pour ça qu'on est en appel de la décision, parce qu'on la comprend pas.
Well, that's why we're appealing the decision, because we don't really understand it. We don't understand the logic behind it. The idea that advertising is part of the Super Bowl broadcast, well, that seems to be the CRTC's idea. But 5 or 7 years ago, those advertisements were not available unless you watched the match. Now, sometimes those advertisements are available a couple days before on the internet. Now, we advanced various proposals. We had talked about having a dedicated website for the advertisements. But it's true that the system is facing a lot of challenges at the moment. So I don't know what's leading that, but this was certainly one of the straws that broke the camel's back. We have to have digital proposals, but it's very costly. There's a lot of production costs. But for every dollar that comes out of traditional broadcasting to go to digital broadcasting, you know, that's money that's lost. In 2015, you made profits of $21.5 billion, so certainly the business is doing well. You can't say it's not doing well. But if we look at media concentration, vertical concentration, consolidation, that all allows you to support less profitable industries like other stations that are losing money. So if CTV loses money, how can I say this? How do the other subsidiaries deal with this? How do they deal with that situation?
If I could in English, I think ultimately every business division needs to stand on its own. I think historically in the media division, the specialty and pay operations help to prop up the conventional television. The situation we're discussing today isn't something that's emerged over the last 18 months. This is something that's actually been occurring over the last 10 to 15 years. And so the specialty and pay business, which was healthy, helped to support that business, and there were a bunch of reasons why that made sense at the time. Unfortunately, as we're watching certain developments in the media space, for example, people exiting the regulated system, cutting the cord shaving, so taking less services, that's put pressure on that profitable specialty and pay business. And in fact, we now have a whole new regulatory regime that is now allowing Canadians much greater choice in terms of how they subscribe to all of those channels. And we're not saying that's a bad thing. It just puts pressure on those assets that would have been in a position to support the money losing asset in the past. So now you have a situation where you had one healthy division, one less healthy division. You've now got a situation where the healthy division isn't as healthy and the less healthy division is even less healthy. And so there comes a point in time where if you continue to subsidize, you actually aren't just throwing good money after bad, but you're actually impairing the business that's actually subsidizing.
Mais je vous poserai la question alors.
So I'll ask you the following question. In your document where you talk about investors, this is in point 7 of the 2016 report, under the heading business risk, it says that the fundamental separation between content and the connection service is changing, and it could lead to cutting the cable, reducing services. Can you explain to me how a stakeholder of Bell, now because of course all of your divisions are grouped together, how can we know where we're going with this?
Goldstein, you look poised to answer that question, and I think we might be able to do that at some point when you have another question, because Mr. Nantel, your 7 minutes is up. Thank you. Now, I'd like to go to Mr. Sampson for 7 minutes for the Liberals.
Merci. Et bienvenue.
Thank you and welcome. Thank you for being here to give us some feedback. I come from Nova Scotia. I'm a Acadian. I'd just like to mention that I'm one of the first Acadians elected there. Now, I'll just follow up on one of my colleagues' questions about the internet. But actually, first, you appeared on April 19th before the CRTC, and you said the following: that your company said that internet access was not a question of money, but rather a question of poverty. So you said it wasn't so much an issue of affordability, but a question of poverty. Can you explain a little bit more what you meant by that?
I wish I could. I think you're referring to our appearance at the Basic Telecommunications Service hearing. As I indicated to one of your colleagues' questions earlier, this is the media group. I run the regulatory group for media and for Bell TV. So I'm not as familiar with that proceeding or that file, so I apologize. I think we'd be happy to follow up in writing if that's helpful to the committee. But it's not an area where I feel competent to comment here.
Yes.
D'accord. Également, le 25 janvier.
And on January 25th, you made a presentation before the CRTC where you proposed creating a fund, a local news fund. How do you propose that fund would be funded? And what will it mean for your business?
So that hearing I know. So I think what you're referring to is the local news fund we proposed at the CRTC's recent hearing on local TV and community television. What we had proposed is that certain of the funding that the broadcast distributors put into their community channels, as well as a small amount of that it goes into the Canadian Media Fund, would be redirected to form this new fund. And the new fund wouldn't just be a handout. Essentially, what it would be is you would be required to spend a certain amount of money, and you would then get essentially 2/3 of the cost, and you would get 1/3 covered under the fund, but only for amounts above your regulatory minimum. So essentially stations in Canada right now have obligations. They essentially have no obligations to specifically provide local news. They have obligations to provide local programming, and there would be a base minimum of local news established per market, and where you exceeded that amount, you would be eligible for a 1/3 of your over and above costs on a pro rata basis to be covered. I'm thinking in terms of what it would mean to us out of that fund. I think, I'm going from memory here, I think the fund was going to be somewhere in the kind of $65 to $70 million range, and for us, I'm just trying to remember, I think it's just over $20 million would go to us to help support our local television or local news operations. Just by way of comparison, when the aforementioned LPIF existed, which was the previous fund that was eliminated, I think went away in 2014. At its height, we were receiving somewhere between $23 and $25 million, and that really was a lifeline to our stations.
Thank you. And the other question would be more on the radio side. Have your revenues increased or decreased on the radio sector, if you want, and why?
Radio revenues are down as well, and they're down sizably. I'm going to use Ottawa as an example because that's the market that I'm most familiar with, but it is representative of what's going on across the entire country. So over the course of the period of time since 2011, in the Ottawa market, local television advertising revenue is down 12%. Local radio advertising for our company is down 20%. And it's down for a couple of reasons. And this applies, as I said, to both television and radio. One of the reasons that it's down is that there's a fundamental change going on in local communities. The local retail landscape is very different today than it has ever been at any time in the past. We are becoming communities of what I call boutiques and big box stores. There is a level of business, big small business I call it, that in this country is disappearing, and it's disappearing largely as a result of so many people adopting different shopping habits, those being shopping online. The other big fundamental change that is going on in the advertising world is that dollars to digital don't necessarily mean dollars to digital advertising. And what I mean when I say that is that, the car dealer who's on the corner is being forced to make decisions now about how they spend every advertising dollar. And they need to be in the digital space. And as a result of needing to be in the digital space, what they're doing is taking traditional advertising dollars and channeling them to website creation, to website maintenance, to creating and maintaining a social media presence. They're channeling those dollars to search engine optimization, and they're taking those dollars away from spending advertising on local television and radio stations. And for my properties in Ottawa alone, my quick estimate as to the impact of that on an annual basis is $2.6 million a year, and it's growing fast. And these are changes that no matter what I do, no matter what my staff does, we can't influence a difference, because what we're talking about is fundamental structural changes in the manner by which the economy functions in this country at the local level, in communities like Ottawa, like Winnipeg, like Calgary, like Brandon, Manitoba, like Halifax, Nova Scotia. This is going on across the country from coast to coast.
Much time is up, Mr. Sampson. And now we go to the second half. But because of time constraints, I think we're going to go for a 3-minute only on this part. And we're going to go with Mr. Van Loan and Mr. Waugh. How you want to divide your 3 minutes would be.
I'll start, but with only 3, we'll see how far we get. The worst way that public policy gets made is by the personal anecdotes of people's own experiences. So let me indulge in that. My constituency is York-Simcoe, north of Toronto, north end of York Region. I have municipalities like Georgina and East Gwillimbury, and served largely by your CTV2 affiliate, used to be the old New VR out of Barrie, CKVR. And I used to, when I was first elected, see a CKVR camera in my constituency about every weekend when I was out and about. That's probably dropped to maybe once every 4 weeks I might see it. Though in fairness, your helicopter out of Toronto, when something big's going on, will be flying overhead and covering that. In contrast, CBC, I don't think I have seen one of their cameras in my constituency in literally years. And when something big happens in my communities, it's generally shown by a map and somebody on the telephone, and they've described it as an area north of the GTA, even though, of course, it's part of the GTA. So when I hear you talk about the challenges of CBC having $1 billion a year subsidy, I don't see from that experience how that subsidy is making it hard for you to compete, certainly in that market. So can you tell me how that subsidy makes it hard for you to compete on local news?
Well, you know, for us, it's about covering the news. And if there's a story in your constituency, we'll be there. And that's what's important for us, and it's about being where the news is. I can't talk for what the CBC chooses to cover, but I know if there's news, and we think it's news, and we deem it's news, we will be there.
Okay, full disclosure, I was a member of Bell up until October 19th. So a couple of things. First of all, Wendy, first time local stations never covered the federal election. It's the first time in the history. So you tell me how important it is, and yet Toronto gave everyone the federal election results. Maybe comment on that, because that wasn't local. Every station in this country locally didn't report on it. Yeah, they did after the election results, and they did the local news at late night, but why did you make that decision?
Again, it's very costly for our local stations to do what we used to call cut-ins during the federal election. So instead, what we did provide, though, however, was a constant local ticker in your region, and we did provide locally who was ahead and who was winning, etc. But again, it was a very, very costly undertaking to do. And when we did do the local cut-ins, we found that sometimes we would never get to the local station to say it, because something would be happening, you know, a speech, the new Prime Minister would be speaking. So we discovered that we weren't sometimes ever going to them anyways. So instead, though, we took the very, I thought was quite effective, is that we had a local ticker, and we constantly, in your region locally, you were able to see who was ahead, who won, etc.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. That's it, Mr. Wall. I'm sorry. I know, 3 minutes is not a long time. And now Mr. Breton, and Mr. Breton would like to share his time with Mr. Boissonneau, and I don't know how we're going to do that with 3 minutes, but let's go right ahead.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Alors,
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll see if I have time to share with Mr. Boissonneau, but first of all, I'd like to say thank you for being there. It's a real pleasure to hear what you have to say. There are a lot of policies and regulations in this country that deal with broadcasting and telecommunications. In your opinion, what would be, or what are, the two best solutions or the best public policies that would help us ensure that we have local, regional broadcasting everywhere in the country?
I think the two best would be a secondary revenue stream for local television, whether that's a fund or takes the form of a value for signal, fee for carriage regime like they have in the US, where local television stations are thriving. And the second one would be to ensure that overall local television stations have the best, rights protection, such as simultaneous substitution and things like that, to ensure that out-of-market stations don't pull audience from their program.
Less than 2 minutes, 1.5.
Thank you very much. A question for Ms. Freeman. Ms. Freeman, as you're embracing the digital shift and with the work that Bell has done in convergence, if you cast out 5-10 years, what are the moves that you need to make now to ensure that there is not only local programming, but robust Canadian content produced across the system 5 to 10 years out?
Good question. I can't even predict 5 days out anymore, to be honest. Again, we really feel that mobile is key. As you know, the younger generation, millennials, an iPhone or a BlackBerry is basically part of their body. So it's very important for us to be in that space at all times. And again, our whole future is about digital first, and also doing stories in the end that will attract people, because in the end it's all about storytelling, and a good story people will watch no matter what on any device. So it's for us, it's about getting the most eyeballs on all devices, and doing the best storytelling we can so that people will always come. If it's good, they'll always come no matter what.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. And that rounds that up. Mr. Nantel for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll come back to my question earlier that had to do with your brochure that you gave to your investors. Something that I think we don't discuss as much anymore is the extent to which the system is interdependent. There are people like you who are asked to make certain efforts, and then you may make money here, lose money somewhere else, etc. So, in terms of your interaction with, or when Rogers came here, I was hoping to have meetings where we could have discussions that are as transparent as possible about exactly who plays what role. In broadcasting, for example, or in cellular telecommunications, things are going very well as far as I can see. In terms of the passage to 600 hertz, well, that's going to create some additional costs, but also some new business opportunities for the wireless sector. So my question is, can we all recognize that it would be useful and a good idea? Well, even when you speak to your stakeholders, you say, look, we have divisions that are doing really well and divisions that are doing very poorly. But the overall picture, when discussing the overall picture, wouldn't it be useful to have separate spokespersons for each division? Well, at the request of the minister, Bell, regardless of its business sectors, will participate in these discussions about the digital transition, about Canadian content on all platforms. Secondly, concerning your question about our relationship with investors, a responsible company like Bell needs to be as clear and transparent as possible about the risks that are taken. Now, today, of course, I can tell you with great certainty about what's happened in the last 3 years, but I can't give you any certainty about what's going to happen in the next 3 months. In terms of our relationship with investors, well, there are different regulatory decisions that can be made. There are different ways of dealing with Canadians. There are different desires in terms of advertisement. And we can't always know if another business is going to take a part of that business. Even if a different sector does take over some of our business, well, what's their business case? It doesn't mean that money leaving, being lost in ad revenue will be recuperated elsewhere. So that's why the company needs to explain all of the risks that are taken once a year. That's a legal obligation that we have. But we also want to allow our investors to make purchases at the right time. So all of this is to say that federal and provincial ministers, if they request our opinions and proposals, we will provide them. Your colleague also asked a question about what was said last January, solutions that were proposed. But in any case, you can count on our future participation.
And that brings an end to this session with Bell Canada. Thank you so much for coming and for answering questions. And I think we have to leave and move on to the next witnesses. So thank you very much for coming, and we'll take a recess for about a minute so that we can clear the room and get the new people in. Thank you. Mr. Baldock and Madame Blais here. Yes. Could they please take a seat? Session, and we have the Canadian Union of Public Employees, Mr. Baldock and Madame Blais, and we also have the Canadian Association of Community Television Users and Stations, Catherine Edwards, and I don't know, I think Mr. Desrochers is with her?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Here's the drill. You have 10 minutes to present, and then we have a question and answer session. So I'm going to give you a 2-minute cue when your 10 minutes are going to be up, so you know you have 2 more minutes to go. And then I'll have to cut you off, I'm afraid. So if you don't finish your presentation, you may be able to get some of your presentation in the answers to the others. So I shall begin with the Canadian Union of Public Employees, and you will decide who is speaking to what. So we're beginning? Yes. Please begin.
Alors,
Mr. Baldock.
merci Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Thank you for inviting us to talk about local media. So it's a subject that's very dear to us, since we represent workers that produce local content on a daily basis in Quebec, whether on the radio, on television, or in newspapers. So my name is Denis Bolduc. I'm the Secretary General of the Canadian Union of Public Employees in Quebec. I'm here today with Ms. Nathalie Blais from our research branch. In a previous life, both of us were journalists. And we've prepared this statement with media workers that still work in the field. And both of them are here with us today. There's Richard Labelle, a cameraman at TVA, who's also Vice President of the TV and Radio Workers for our communications sector, and Jean-François Racine, President of the Journal de Québec, Union of the Editorial Staff. And they will be able to answer questions if we are not able to do so. We'll not spend a lot of time talking about the critical financial situation surrounding television and print media. I think you're already well aware of the declining advertising numbers. That said, we'd like to highlight the fact that it's actually the national advertising numbers which show a downward trend, while the local ad purchasing numbers are stable. You can see that in Table 2 of our report. What we want to talk about this morning is actually the importance of local media for our democracy. And it's important emphasizing recommendations which aim to further support the production of local news content. Let's start by looking at the local news landscape in Quebec. Earlier this year, CUPE commissioned a study from Influence Communication, which was submitted as evidence to the CRTC during its consultation on local television. Here are some of its key findings. First, in 2015, there was 42% more information, more news from all sources circulating in Quebec compared to 2001. Yet, there was 88% less local news content. This means local news information that comes directly from the region of origin accounts for less than 1% of all news information available in the province of Quebec. 2. If we compare different regions, we see that the amount of local news content available varies a lot. This is shown in Table 4 of our report. For example, in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, there is 18% local content for about 275,000 people, whereas in Montreal, there's about 1% of available content for a population of about 2 million. 3. The quantity of available local news content has an impact on voter turnout in elections. Influence Communication compared local news content with voter turnout during the 2013 municipal elections, and they found that, on the whole, voter turnout was greater in regions which had more local news content. So local news content has a direct, real impact on our democracy. And this is the main reason why it's important to support the production of local content and to implement measures that will protect the expertise of the journalists and media professionals that produce it. The traditional financial model for television and print media may be weakened, but our solutions to strengthen it cannot ignore the importance of local news content and must ensure that the public interest is served. In this era of rapid technological change, some people have also changed the way that they consume media. Those under the age of 44 get most of their news online, whereas those 45 and older still prefer to read a newspaper or watch the news on television. Nevertheless, most people get their information from multiple sources and platforms. And many from the younger generation still read the paper and watch the newscast on television. There are also those from the older generation, like me, who spend a lot of time reading the news online. So things are not black and white, and all platforms do remain relevant in 2016. The biggest problem is that the media outlets must shift toward digital platforms while revenues plummet, and when the newer generation has gotten used to consuming its news content for free. We are therefore recommending that the federal government create a new tax credit for advertising purchases on Canada's traditional media platforms, radio, newspaper, and television. This tax credit's aim would be to support the communications industry during its transition to digital platforms. Many studies have shown that advertising on traditional platforms is still very effective, though new trends and the smaller price tag can make online advertising enticing, even though it's harder to measure its real impact. The tax credit would rebalance things in the sense that the lower cost of online advertising, which is often offered up by foreign companies like Google and Facebook, would be less appealing. Furthermore, these online companies often do not produce local news content, and definitely do not, often do not produce news content at all, and certainly not local news content. In fact, traditional media platforms are still the source of much of local news content on the web. CUPE also recommends that the federal government implement a new payroll tax credit in order to allow Canadian traditional media outlets to continue to fulfill their mandate of delivering local content despite the difficult financial situation. Newspapers, television, and radio have an unmatched expertise in terms of news and information that newer media platforms have yet to acquire. We must ensure that Canadians have access to this content and expertise. This tax credit could be granted for every media worker that is directly implicated in producing factual news content. provided that these eligible news outlets adhere to a code of conduct, such as the one used in Quebec. Opinion-based journalism would not be eligible for the tax credit. Finally, CUPE recommends that the federal government work to provide a better system for collecting data in the communications sector. 10 days ago, the Minister of Heritage launched a review of all federal government policy measures that support the cultural sector, including those that affect news content. Unfortunately, the latest CRTC consultations on local and community television clearly demonstrated that there were holes in the available data. For instance, we don't know how many journalists cover local news in Canada, or even how many hours of news content or news stories are broadcast on the internet, on television, or on the radio. This is in the context of outlets like CTV and Global, which are looking to reduce local content, which is mainly news. To address this lack of relevant information, the Governor and Council could make use of Article 7.1 of the Broadcasting Act in order to instruct the CRTC to collect more statistics on the industry which it regulates. For written press, more detailed data could be collected by Heritage Canada. To conclude, CUPE believes that professional journalism, built upon a recognized ethical framework, is an essential part of our democracy and must be supported. Canadians deserve to know what's happening in their communities. 2 minutes? So Canadians deserve to know what's happening in their communities from the best sources so that they can make informed decisions. The government has the responsibility to implement measures that will ensure that all Canadians have access to news and information that is diversified, complete, and of the highest quality. Access to good information is essential to promote a healthy democracy. Thank you very much for listening, and we would be very happy to answer your questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well done. And now we go to our next, Madam Edwards and Mr. Desrochers from the Canadian Association of Community Television Users and Stations. And you have 10 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I'm Catherine Edwards, the Executive Director of the Canadian Association for Community Television Users and Stations, or CACTUS. With me is André Desrochers, our board member from Quebec. CACTUS was formed in 2008 to bring to the attention of policymakers that Canada's formerly robust community TV sector had fallen behind the pace of technological change. 30 countries recognize community media as a third broadcasting sector, complementary to the public and private sectors. In all countries except Canada, community broadcasting is defined by community not-for-profit ownership. We see community ownership in Canada's community radio sector. Almost 200 not-for-profit, community-owned radio stations provide local reflections in communities that are too small to support a public or private sector station, and an outlet for a diversity of voices in urban areas. However, community ownership is not the status quo for community TV in this country. Because Canada was the first to offer community TV in the late 1960s, before there were portable video cameras, only unwieldy and expensive studio cameras, the mandate for citizen access was placed under the stewardship of cable companies. So over 300 Wayne's World-like cable production studios opened countrywide, serving most communities having more than 5,000 people, and many smaller ones as well. Cable companies kept costs down by co-locating studios with their head ends. For example, in a small place like Arnprior up the Ottawa Valley, the one employee that installed your cable was probably the same guy that opened up the studio and played back your videotape. These channels were a huge success. They enabled free speech and a diversity of voices on broadcast TV. They offered media literacy training, incubating a generation of Canadian filmmakers, technicians, journalists, writers, and actors, such as Guy Madden, Dan Aykroyd, and Frédéric Arnould. They fostered also civic engagement by providing unfiltered access by elected officials such as yourselves to constituents through open-line Dollar Your MP talk shows and election and council coverage. But all that changed when the digital transition began in the 1990s. Cable companies began to consolidate and fiber optically interconnect formerly separate systems, and the head ends weren't needed anymore. More than 200 of the 300 studios that had enabled TV production in our smallest community disappeared with the head ends. And even at the big city studios that remained, cable companies were facing competition from satellite. Citizen Access was sidelined in favor of staff-produced slick productions that cable companies hoped would help them retain subscribers. But despite their efforts, cable penetration slipped from a high of over 80% in the 1980s to just below 60% today, so that a bare majority of Canadians can see the content on a cable community channel, let alone access a production facility to create content of their own. More than $1 billion in subscriber money has been spent on these channels over the last decade, yet Numeris reports that only 1.5% of Canadians watch them in a given week. Subscribers in Montreal have even filed a class action suit against Videotron's MaTV community channel.
Déjà en 1986, le rapport Kaplan-Sauvageau, élaboré par le groupe de travail.
In 1986, the Calepin-Sauvageau report, written by the Working Group on the Broadcasting Policy, recommended that these community stations get their own license under the Broadcasting Act, which was adopted in 1991. Same thing in 2003, when Clifford Lincoln, on behalf of the Heritage Committee, tabled a report called Our Cultural Sovereignty. But those recommendations were not implemented. Thanks to many of our members, it's now possible to obtain a community license, a not-for-profit community license. And 8 of Cactus's members benefited from such licenses. But there's no funding model to support these licenses. Our members survive basically on revenue from bingo games and bake sales. 46% of residents of these 8 communities watch these broadcasts weekly, however. CRTC requested that funding obtained from cable revenue, more than $150 million per year, be redirected into a new fund to develop a not-for-profit community media centers.
Not just audio and video production as in the past, but also web design and gaming. Their content would be distributed not just on cable TV, but over the air, on satellite, on the internet, and on mobile devices. This $150 million is enough to fund 250 digital community media centers, restoring service to all communities with 5,000 people or more, and many smaller communities as well. The CRTC did not heed our request. So to prepare for the CRTC's most recent local and community TV policy review, we teamed up with community radio as well as online community media and the gaming community to propose a single coherent policy to bring community media in Canada into the 20th century. This research and policy proposal were distributed to you in both official languages. The relevance of digital community media centres to your study is threefold. First of all, skills training. The mere existence of the internet doesn't mean everyone knows how to use it or that journalistic standards are met. The community sector can produce an hour of content for less than a tenth what it costs in the public and private sectors, $500 compared to over $6,000, because we leverage volunteer labour and community infrastructure, but it still takes facilities and professionals to train the public. Secondly, more media for more communities. In the recent CRTC local and community TV hearing, we heard that there are public and private TV stations in just 59 Canadian cities, almost all having populations over 100,000. So even if a news fund were created, for example, from the $150 million currently earmarked to support community TV, as some parties have proposed, it would primarily support existing big city stations, and everyone acknowledged that such a fund would at best be a band-aid, not a long-term solution. So Cactus's proposal to create a community access media fund, on the other hand, would lead to the reopening of not just television studios, but full multimedia production and training centres in almost 200 Canadian population centres in addition to the 59 biggest. No other sector can make this commitment to you. It is community media that can serve Francophone minorities in small to mid-sized markets, and at least some of our more than 500 First Nations. The 2012 report from this committee, entitled Emerging in Digital Media, New Challenges and Opportunities, endorsed our call for digital community media centres. And third, it would restore diversity. As you've heard from Professor Winsek, Canada's media ownership concentration is extremely high. The more concentrated it has become, the less sense it has made for the same large entities to control the so-called community sector, whose mandate is to provide the very diversity of voices that we're lacking. So our recommendation is that Canada needs a new vision for community media that will equip our citizens and youth with the digital media skills they need to generate their own content, to compete internationally, and to have meaningful dialogue with one another that's not limited to 132 characters on Twitter or fragmented platforms such as Facebook. The community sector offers the biggest bang for the buck to reflect our communities in all media. The money's there. It just needs to be deployed effectively. Therefore, our recommendations are, firstly, that the Department of Canadian Heritage should develop a digital community media policy for Canada that includes old and new media. Secondly, that we should create a community access media fund to support community-operated digital production centres. Third, that we should direct BDU subscriber revenues for community TV to this fund. And lastly, that the service delivery via the fund and community centres needs to be coordinated with four. The Ministry of Science, Innovation, Economic Development, and Employment, Workforce and Labour regarding the digital skills training mandate. Second, with the Ministry of Democratic Institutions regarding the civic and democratic mandate of community media. And finally, with the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, because community media centres represent significant infrastructure. Thanks a lot for doing this study. Much needed, and we look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go into the question and answer period, and it begins with a 7-minute question from everyone, but that includes the answers. So I'm hoping that everybody would be as concise as you can. And we begin with Mr. Breton from the Liberals.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you to all the witnesses for being here and for having given us your testimony. There are some quite concerning situations. Ms. Blais, Mr. Bolduc, you spoke about the decline in ad revenue. Can I get an earpiece? Okay. You talked about the decline in ad revenue, the importance of local news to democracy, and I certainly share your point of view on that. But what I find particularly concerning, now I live in the Eastern Townships, and we have local media there, traditional local media. So when I hear that there's been an 88% decline in local content, I find that very concerning. Now, there are a lot of funding centers, community centers in my riding. There are a lot of things happening in the community. We have a lot of famous local athletes, but we hear less and less about what's going on there in our communities. We hear a lot more about what's going on in Sherbrooke or in Montreal or in the big urban centers. So tell me a little bit about the solutions that you might propose, short-term solutions that could be implemented quickly to solve this problem. You talked about tax credits, but is there anything else? Well, we need to find a way to encourage media to produce local news, because that trend that you have mentioned is concerning to us as well. There's an erosion of local news in the media, and that's a trend that we've been noticing for several years. I started working for the Journal de Québec in 1985, and I can say that since 2011, I'm no longer there. But at the time, at the Journal du Québec and at Le Soleil and at TVA, CBC Radio-Canada, back in the day, we used to really work locally. But now, journalists in big urban centers really need a big story before they're going to go out. So things have changed. And if you analyze the situation, it's clear that we need to have some incentives. Companies always talk about money. So we need to find a financial incentive. That's why we found this simple solution of tax credits. For local media, there's a lack of ad revenue, and a company might have a budget of $50,000 per year, for example. So if there's a tax credit for 20%, they might choose to invest invest the additional money to have more advertising revenue to make things go better. So that will certainly, there could be an incentive to create local content if there was some additional funding. That could certainly allow for the production of local news. So I think it needs to be a financial incentive. It's all well and good to talk about grand principles. You know, we care about the quality of the news, of course. That's why we're talking about the Code of Ethics. That's why this is so important. And companies are asking news experts to create news for many different platforms and to spend less time actually checking the facts, checking the news. And the goal is to create tons of content rather than checking it. Companies don't talk a lot about the quality of the news anymore, and that's something that concerns us. Quantity is important, but so is quality. Thank you. The media and communications sector is facing an incredible transformation these days, incredible technological transformation. We know that the use of digital technology is growing, and there are two sides to that. It's easy to get information and news from all over the world, but the new generation and even us are consuming it more and more. So what's the impact of this digital transformation, and how do you see this trend, particularly as it concerns local news? Well, first of all, I think it's important to distinguish between... Okay, 2 minutes. First of all, I'd like to make a distinction between digital broadcasting on digital platforms, and digital production, because there's been digital production for more than 20 years, so that's not so much an issue. The issue is more in terms of the diversity of different digital platforms, and you need to provide content for all of those platforms. So it takes a lot more time for a single journalist to create news for a variety of platforms rather than simply making one report and delivering it through one single platform. So it takes time to check all of that. And then there's also the question of technology. It's a lot easier to use different platforms now. So you have journalists who are also cameramen, who are also editors. They're doing everything. You can imagine that in a single day, a journalist might have spent a single day doing one report in the past, and now the journalist might spend a third of the day doing the report, a third of the day doing the editing, a third of it making sure that the technology is working. So this is the quality issue, and that's why we're proposing a payroll tax credit, because as ad revenue goes down, the companies are cutting staff, and that means that there is a loss of quality. It's not because they have bad intentions, it's just that this is the way the system is working. Thank you.
Thank you. You have, no, that's it. I'm sorry, you have 2 seconds. But now I would like to go to Mr. Waugh for the Conservatives.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for this community television policies, all 170 pages, 2 a.m. this morning. I've been very adamant in these meetings, dollars to dimes. We are hearing this every time somebody comes to this table. And that's where the heritage must fit in somewhere. We just heard from Bell. We all know the situation there. So I will say for Bell, if you don't mind me saying, they did buy CTV for one thing, content. They need content, and that's why they bought it. So don't feel sorry for them. There was a reason they bought CTV, because they needed content for people to go on their websites, for television stations, and so on. But you talked about, Ms. Blais, a payroll tax credit. How is that going to work? Maybe just bring us up to date, because everybody that has come to the Heritage Committee wants a handout. Whether it's the the local news improvement fund that they had, but everybody wants a pot of money that I don't know where it's coming from. And now you've proposed another one here today. So fill us in on this, because that is the issue that we have faced here for 3 months. Is there is a pot, or there isn't a pot of money, but we need another pot of money. So where is this payroll tax credit coming from?
Mais écoutez, le concept.
Well, the concept is simple. We wanted to get away from the idea of a fund that would directly fund news. So we were trying to find a different solution that would provide funding that was sort of associated with responsibilities. So yes, we're proposing a tax credit. The money would come from the government, but it would be a tax credit that would lead to concrete results. We see that there are fewer and fewer journalists in the regions. So they're located more centrally. They're not out there in the regions. So to stimulate regional news coverage, we're proposing a payroll tax credit, because what we're currently seeing is that there are cuts, staff cuts, and there's a centralization of production. So, for example, there's going to be a centralization in Montreal for stations in Sherbrooke and Trois-Rivières. So people in Sherbrooke and Trois-Rivières are going to lose their jobs. So that's weakening the economy in those areas. And that's why we think that this tax credit is a good idea. Yes, it's coming from the government, but we think that it will constitute an asset for the local economy.
Quality of news reporting, I would agree with you, that has slipped over the years. I would absolutely agree with each and every one of you talking about that. Now, does community media fill that? I see a revival in community newspapers across this country. Local radio doing very well in most communities. So where do you fit in on this?
So the purpose of community media is exactly to enable, to be the bridge between ordinary citizens producing content, and we see that all over the internet, and not necessarily meeting journalistic standards, and not necessarily properly researched, not necessarily having good production values and quality. So the purpose of a community media organization, for example, in your riding would be people that want to create content and want to learn how to make a good story, to research it properly, to allow both sides of the story to be reported, can come and learn those skills, learn how to use cameras, learn to post it on a web page, properly footnoted. So that's what community media does. It's to enable the average person to meet those journalistic standards that wouldn't happen on its own with just an open and free internet. So that's why community media organizations are still tremendously important, because not everybody has those skills, and even the tech-savvy kids that run around with camcorders, as you say, they don't necessarily have journalistic training, so that's what community media provides.
So is it a relic or a renewal?
It's definitely about renewal. It's every bit as relevant as ever. Back in the day when community radio and TV were instituted, they were teaching media skills training on the latest media of the day at that time. It's even more complex now. You still need to know how to create audio, to edit, shoot and edit video content, whether you're distributing it on television or all these different platforms that Natalie talked about. But now there's genuinely new media. Gaming has taken over the size of the film and television industries in Canada. So there's new skills, and there's new platforms and tools that are going to keep proliferating, and for Canadians to keep up with that, to create their own content, but also just to do things like fill out your tax return. There's got to be somewhere where people can go for lifelong digital media skills training at the community level.
Who would you partner with? Or do you need to partner with anybody?
Definitely.
I'm just looking in my community, the food bank does a lot of it, okay?
Yep.
They deal with that. So do you need to partner with anyone?
Absolutely. So, for example, John Savage is sitting in the back left corner. He's with the Ontario Library Association. You may have seen in recent years, I see more in Ontario than in Quebec, but I've seen they're introducing maker spaces. In the last 4 or 5 years, public libraries are offering the public green screens, camera, you can borrow editing systems. The missing link is that they don't have the staff, and they don't have the sort of vision for a 24/7 production schedule to reflect back a community to itself on a consistent basis. It's still a bit ad hoc. Municipalities need to have seats on community media centers. Local cultural organizations, professional associations need to have seats on community media centers to give them artistic and journalistic leadership. The board, this is the beauty of a community-run not-for-profit, is you can get all the important local associations, including the Chamber of Commerce, for example, so that that community resource can be leveraged to serve the whole community.
Si je veux parler au nom du Québec.
To speak for Quebec, we have help from the provincial government in Quebec. So the community stations that manage to provide 4 hours of local content, they get $25,000 to $30,000 from the Quebec government to help them with that. And if they broadcast on the internet, they can get between $8,000 and $10,000 per year to help community stations do that. So what we're proposing, or what has been proposed to us rather, is to have community media centers. So all of these platforms would come together, radio, television, and so on. And in the case of Sherbrooke, where there's only one community station, MatTV, you could have up to 4 community media centers there in the eastern townships, which could bring everyone together. And that would help produce local news and get it to a greater number of people.
Finished, Mr. Waugh, and now Mr. Nantel for 7 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Merci tout le monde d'être ici.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here this morning. Of course, we're getting a different perspective from you than we got from the first panel this morning. I think this all makes sense to me, and I think everything you're proposing is quite necessary. Mr. Desrochers, I think your idea is very interesting. It's not the first time I've heard about the idea of a community media center. It's something that we often talk about in my riding, about finding local news. So a very brief question for you. Do you not believe that there's a choice to be made in the way these groups come together? Because if we bring together local stations in a single region, it might be difficult to make that choice. We don't want to create a project that's too big. You don't want to have one single station for a huge region in l'Outaouais, for example. Yes, absolutely. So the groups will be formed depending on what the community wants. So if we're bringing together 4 or 5 municipalities, let's say in Saskatchewan, you have various communities there. The goal is not to create a single huge station with diluted news content. The goal is to ask the communities what they want, and if they want to come together, they can create a group. We don't want to impose anything. We want the community groups to agree on how they want to form these associations. So we could say we want to bring together X, Y, and Z regions. Looking at Heritage Canada's mandate to really strengthen the social fabric in the communities, I think you may not have heard this, but we had representatives from the Anglophone community media appear before the committee, and they were proposing a similar type of grouping. Now, I'd like to talk about this with you because this is something that has been considered part of heritage. Now, you represent workers, you at CUPE, and you're dealing with an industry that is not doing well, where there is a lack of local service, but the industry as a whole is suffering, and you represent the workers in that industry. Now, I constantly criticize the fact that the Minister of Industry isn't involved in a lot of these industries, because this is a question of industry. There are workers who are doing regular work, and all of a sudden they have to convert to a whole new way of doing things. So if there's one sector, one industry where workers' quality of life has changed completely, where they've essentially almost become freelancers, it's certainly your industry. Isn't that right? Yes, certainly. Increasingly, media are trying to subcontract out work They're trying to get rid of unionized workers because a lot of the industry is unionized. And we've seen that this is a trend that has increased over the past few years. And, you know, news is a product, but it's not a product like sausage. Okay, sausage, people want to eat it until they don't want to eat it anymore. But with the news, if you start to neglect local news for financial reasons, people convince themselves that the only news that's really interesting is news from the big urban centers, that's what people want. But if you look at studies, for example, recently we did a study earlier this year, and you look at the impact of the lack of local news on democracy and on people's participation and turnout rates in local municipal elections, there's a real impact there. You can see that there's a correlation between the quantity of local news and voter turnout in municipal elections. So we went so far as to propose, well, we even said that there could be a similar correlation for the federal elections, although that's not proven to the same extent. And there was a conflict at the Journal de Québec. There was a 16-month lockout. And as you said, people are suffering. People who work in media are not doing well. It's the case at Journal de Québec, Journal de Montréal. And there have been a lot of unions in the media industry who were asked to make significant concessions and who are now working in a very different environment with much higher pressure, and they're facing the possibility of having people, external freelancers who don't deal with the same code of ethics may come in. So there are a lot fewer protections, and that all has an impact on the quality of the news. So that's why you're proposing a tax credit based on the number of workers. And just a nuance here, you're talking about a 20% tax credit for local news broadcasters, is that right? Well, we didn't put a number on the tax credit, but we were talking about a tax credit for broadcasters because people are increasingly looking at targeted advertising on the internet, and we don't know what the impact of that is. So in some regions, 20% of people do watch the nightly news broadcast every single day, and advertisers seem to have left for the internet where there's actually less revenue. So perhaps 15% would be appropriate? Yes, that would be a good idea. Do you think that bringing some of these big players to the table would be a good idea? Do we need to get statistics from them so that we can make more informed decisions in the industry?
Perhaps you can answer that when you have a moment with another questioner. We've ended our 7 minutes. And now we go to Madame Debusson from the Liberals.
Thank you. I was happy to receive in writing an answer to a question that I had asked of the CRTC at the beginning of our hearings about the diversity of voices policy from 2008. They have written to advise that there have been no updates on the policy, and it hasn't been reviewed. There's no review planned for it. So I was wondering, Ms. Edwards, if you could tell me what your thoughts are about the diversity of voices policy, whether it requires any updates, and if it does, what would you think those updates should be?
So I can really only, in an informed manner, comment from the point of view of the community sector. But the 2008 Diversity of Voices hearing occurred before the most recent mega mergers, before Bell bought CTV, before Shaw bought Global. So we are, as you heard from Professor Winsek, in a much more media-concentrated environment even than we were then when it was of concern to the CRTC. And from the point of view of the community media sector, which is meant to be like a grassroots safety valve, of last resort in a democracy. So, for example, when nobody would, report in an unbiased way on Stephen Harper as a young reformer in the West, he was on community media in Calgary when I was the volunteer coordinator there. When Elizabeth May can't get on big platforms, she can go to community media. So it's extremely important in a really media-concentrated environment. That's when you need community media the most to provide a diversity of voices and an ability, even for professional journalists. We had a town hall in Toronto last year to talk about having a community media platform in Toronto. And to our surprise, in addition to the usual suspects, so to speak, minority groups, the disabled, there was Ethiopians that came and said, we're not seen on mainstream media. Half the room was full of professional broadcasters who said, we just want our voices to get out anywhere. We can't even have our documentaries seen anywhere if we have an important topic, and we can't find training. As Natalie was saying, is very difficult. At the CBC, you're not allowed to touch an audio cable if you're an editor. It's hard to get those skills. So for all those reasons, community media is the place where we can make sure, at least at the grassroots, there's a diversity of voices that then percolates up and serves as a creative underpinning for our professional production industry. So yes, we think it needs an update, and community media has a big role to play there. Thank you.
Thank you. The other thing I was going to ask, I was on your website looking at it, and I saw that you had a commentary about Digital Canada 150, which I believe you had written yourself. And looking at that, it seemed you were disappointed with what you had found in that policy. I was wondering, do you have any suggestions as to what you would want to see if we were, when we're reconsidering the digital shift?
Are you talking about the Canada 150 sort of spending plans and celebrations for next year?
No, this was the Digital Canada 150 from Industry Canada. This is from 2014, but it was written by you. So
Right. So we met with Industry Canada a couple of times when we knew that they were in the process of creating their digital economy strategy that was published last year. I think a lot of parties felt that it wasn't very specific. They were broad generalities, but certainly one of their important recommendations was that Canadians needed digital skills training. There needs to be somewhere that we can go for lifelong learning. Libraries are taking a little step in that direction, but it's not far enough. They need help. There are community partners and organizations willing to do it, but there needs to be a coherent strategy to make sure that skills training is available to Canadians wherever they live and however small communities, and then again, that's where community media can step in. So it's consistent to what we recommended and this committee recommended in 2012.
Right. Thank you. Just in one of our last hearings, we heard from TELUS, and they spoke about Optic TV as one means of getting community voices out. And I was wondering what you thought about that model, if you had anything to add.
Well, what's happened with, so cable companies, as I was describing, originally had head ends in every little community, so it was convenient and cost efficient to have a studio there. What's happened with satellite companies and some of the ITP TV services like TELUS is they get licenses over huge areas. So TELUS has licenses for all of British Columbia and Alberta. They can't possibly, with their market share, open production centers or training centers in all those places, and yet they're required to spend 2% of their gross revenues on offering community television, and it makes no sense. They have nowhere to offer those services. So what they're doing and Bell doing is they expend this huge budget, which countrywide is $151 million, by writing checks to independent producers, and that's the Optic TV community producers that came to the CRTC hearing. We're all paid. They're all receiving checks. It's professional, commissioned, independent productions. Every one of those producers has a production company and a website. It's not the ordinary person that's supposed to be able to access community media to develop their voice and have a voice in the system. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those shows per se, but it's not the use of that money that was intended by the regulations.
Okay. And then going to another witness, I believe it was Rogers, just because we're talking about the 2% now, I believe it was Rogers who suggested that what they would like to see is the ability to shift around money from under the 2% from one area to another. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, there's two issues with it. One is that right now on CRTC community channels, to try to encourage cable companies to provide community access, they're supposed to spend 50% of their schedule and budgets facilitating citizens to have a voice. What Rogers is asking is if they could move money from their big city community channels like in Toronto to some of their smaller channels. And when I say smaller, they've shut the really small ones. So we're talking about mid-sized community, generally the same communities where we already have other private and public broadcasters. Rogers just wants more money to compete in those markets. They want to reduce the access percentage in those markets to 30% and use the money to hire professional journalists to do news. So again, it's not the use of that money that was intended under the legislation. They're looking for more flexibility to spend that 2% that's supposed to serve community media however they want on professional production, which is what they've been doing over the last 20 years anyways. They've tended to professionalize these channels in order to compete with satellite, as per my presentation. So for us, it's more of the same. It's not going to bring more service to small communities. It's just going to enable Rogers to compete head-to-head with other private and public broadcasters in mid-sized markets that already have broadcasters. It's not going to bring new news coverage or open news stations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Busin, and thank you, Ms. Edwards. I think we're looking at whether or not we can do, I don't think we can do a second round, so I want to thank everyone for being here, and I want to say that we're going to be moving into business of the committee in a few minutes, and so perhaps we could end this session now and move on further. Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Bolduc, Ms. Blais, Mr. Edwards, and Mr. Rocher.